I'm so excited to be bringing your first panel of the day. No Pride Without Justice, Black Queer Lives Matter. I'll be your host today, Michelle, and I have such an amazing selection of people to have this awesome conversation about LGBTQIA rights. It is Pride Month. It is Pride Month, and I'm very excited to be talking about the way that queer lives and Black lives intersect, what that means for us as a culture, what that means for us as a community. Pride Month commemorates the Stonewall riots here in New York 51 years ago. It acted as a catalyst for the modern LGBTQ rights movement. Is that relevant to today's discussion? Maybe. Let's talk about it. So I have some awesome guests today. Let's introduce them. Like I said, my name is Michelle. I am an OSNYC team member, sometimes streamer, actress, and trans woman. My pronouns are she and her. I'm going on over to Miss Denny up here. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Denny, like the diner, Hershey, like the chocolate. I'm here in New York, and I consider myself a creative storyteller, and mediums fall into writing, acting, and music.
Fantastic. So happy to have you, Denny. And Dahlia, welcome.
Hello, I'm Dahlia. I'm in New Jersey. Um, I am a Twitch fan. It's my first time ever, using the platform to show myself, not just being in the comments. So this is kind of like surreal for me. I like to draw. I like video games, and I'm happy to be here, being part of this conversation. Also, I'm a trans woman.
Yes, love to see it. Joy Infinity, hello.
Hi, my name is Joy. I'm currently in Brooklyn, New York. My pronouns are he and her. I am a streamer, gamer, content creator, and I love to be here amongst beautiful, wonderful people.
And you are most certainly in good company today. I want to welcome King Kitsu, our panel cosplayer. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, I'm Kitsu. I'm a trans male. I go by he, him, and I made the unfortunate decision of being a cosplayer. No, it's not an unfortunate. I love being a cosplayer, and I love what I do.
And you do such a good job of it. I love your Instagram. You're amazing. Welcome, Aaron Reese. How are you today?
Hi, I'm all good, Sunny and me. I'm Aaron. I am based in Astoria, New York. My pronouns are he and him. I'm just a writer, podcaster, and digital marketer, and just all out nerd, and happy to be here with the folk today.
We love a multifaceted individual. We're here for it. And finally, but certainly not least, we have Izzy. Hello.
Hi. Hi, I'm Izzy. Pronouns I use are they, them. I am also, unfortunately, cosplayer. I love cosplay. Gang. And outside of that, I do work in the sexual health field, specifically in HIV prevention. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So as you can see, we have a broad range of perspectives to have a really cool conversation today. There is no pride without justice, queer Black Lives Matter, and this conversation will be powered by Quirktastic. So let's just jump right in. I know we gave some brief introductions, but I think there's one thing we can all relate to that is pretty well known in the LGBTQ sort of experience, and that is coming out. What is it? Does it? Who wants to be about it? I want to know, is coming out necessary to living authentically, and was it part of your own experience as an LGBTQ person? I'm going to go right up to the top here with Denny. How do you feel about it?
There are so many steps of coming out, and I feel like the first step is like even knowing that you are put in a closet, and then there's a coming out that you do internally, and there really is, especially for those who are trans, like, and sexuality too, actually. It's just like there is never going to be you're done coming out. It's like, how many times can you do this to a person? Yeah, but I guess like a big coming out would be just with yourself. That's what I would say.
So you would say that the most important person to would to be yourself, to your own truth, but that it's not necessarily important to air it out to everybody if that isn't the way that you want to yourself, maybe.
If it isn't safe, if you don't want to, because it's your business.
It
Yeah.
is your business.
Yes.
Yes, love her.
Dahlia, I'd love to hear your perspective on coming out.
Sure, yeah. Like, I feel like my whole life has been like a series of coming out. Like, it just never ends. Like, first bi, and then gay, and then trans, and then back to bi again. It's just like, but like Denny said, it's important that you come out to yourself, and most importantly, after that, you have to come out to the people in your life, so they know how to relate to you, they know how to refer to you. That's the most important. The small circle, you need to you are, and people street out in society, like you tell them, like Denny said, like, that's your business. I don't shout it from the rooftops. I am who I am. When I walk on the street, treat me how you see me. But if you want to enter, yes, eventually I will come out to you.
Often an expectation on queer people to sort of announce it to the world, like it is people's business to know that about you prior to anything else. And I find that so frustrating. There's so much more to people than just queerness, and I don't think expecting anybody to be about any specific facet of their life is realistic or healthy, or sometimes, like we've said, not safe. Joy, what's your experience with coming out?
I feel like I was never in a closet. I felt like I walked past the closet a few times, felt something good, but I wasn't supposed to look in there. So, because I felt like I was me the whole time, and people like, aren't you gay? And I'm like, am I? So it was more like, honestly, the only thing that ever changed about was my relationship status when I just stopped dating a guy for a long period of time, and I was like, and then it just, oh, guess I'm gay. Like, I just kind of fell into it. That's what she said. But yeah, so it's. But I mean, for the most part, that's what I just learned as I went, because I represent the bi and bisexuality, and as someone who's still, to me, learning and growing, my way of learning about bisexuality was through media, and not knowing that it was a bad thing until people told me it was bad. I was like, oh, we gotta do a better job at representing everybody. So my experience has been pretty good, though. I've been chill.
Love to see that. Love that it's chill. I also feel like there's, on top of like a pressure of coming out, there's also this expectation that you're going to define and label exactly what you are, but we're not. But that doesn't give room for sort of the spectrum of experience, the little gray bits, the in between of your experience as a bisexual person, as a trans person, and it's so limiting, but I think it's people something that's like easily digestible and that they can understand from their own point of reference. Very interesting. Thank you. Kitsu, how about you?
So my experience of coming out, I had to do it multiple times. Because of course, growing up, I grew in a I'm living in Georgia, southern white Christianity neighborhood. And so we weren't taught anything but man and female married date, like literally just like that. So when I graduated high school, I learned, of course, online about other types of sexualities, other genders, and all this stuff. And it was a weird time. It was definitely a weird time because I had to come out to my family about being gender fluid, and I'm just like, well, I like to dress like a dude, and but also at the same time, I was still exploring and learning myself, and it did not go well. It did not go well with family because Southern Georgia. It's great, wonderful, it's a great time.
Mhm.
But when after learning reactions from just identifying as gender fluid, when I built my self confidence and learned more about myself outside of Southern white Georgia, and I was just like, all right, I'm ready to, go away, identify as a trans male, ready to do this, blah, blah. It was kind of like I don't really care what y'all say. Y'all gonna exceed for me, and sorry, but the titters gotta go. Like, they gotta diggity bounce. I don't know how else to tell you. When I came out of transitioning, I kind of slipped through, to be honest, with especially my parents, because it was just kind of like a, hey,
He said, maybe trans.
I'm ready to take my shot every Thursday. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. My whole story is
I
like
hate it.
coming out and everything. It's a wild ride. On top of that, the whole sexuality part, I haven't even told anybody. Like, I don't even know what I have sexually. Like, I'm just like, y'all gonna take what y'all gonna get at this point. Like, that's it. Like, I don't know what else to say. Y'all just gonna take what y'all gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, there comes a point where you're just like, why do I need to let everybody know, like, the way I'm feeling every moment of my life? I mean, there's always, we grow as we get older, we change our perspectives on things, we change the way that we navigate the world. And so why can't it be the same when it comes to something like our attraction to people or the way that we want to express ourselves? I don't understand why there is such a rigid understanding of gender, but I'm trans, so I might be biased. Aaron, I would love to hear
Hey,
about your experience, darling.
you want to hear the saga?
Give me the tea.
Give you the tea? All right. So I feel like I was exposed to just queerness in general really early. My mother was a very sort of butch-facing lesbian, had multiple partners. So I had this sort of duality with my childhood growing up. I see you, Joy. Yes. But I had this duality growing up where I had my mother, but then I had my grandmother and sort of the rest of my immediate family who were all like traditional Christian. So my mother passed when I was an early teen, and I moved in with my grandmother. Um, and so it was kind of like my grandmother was like waiting with bated breath, and not the best sense, because she knew her daughter was a lesbian, and kind of, a curse on the bloodline would be me also coming out. And so I eventually did, and it was it wasn't ideal, and she didn't take it well, but it's grown better over the years. But I think the frustration sometimes of coming out is sort of the world wanting to know the nitty gritties. I've been asked in the workplace, things like, "Are you a top? Are you a bottom?" Like, just sort of, yeah, like, yeah. And mind you, I work in digital marketing, so this is corporate level. Yeah, yeah, and people feel very, very comfortable to do that. I tend to be really reserved when it comes to, female counterparts in a workplace, calling me girl and things like that. Girl is a term of endearment for me that I share with my queer family. So it's not something that I easily sort of, give away. And yeah, I've had people in the workplace like, girl, I can call you girl, right? Well, are you? Like, it's just like peak Karen. Like, Karen is the final boss on every stage. Like,
But okay.
it is. But I mean, I feel like that was the gist of it, and I'm, fortunate in a sense that I was able to identify with my queerness very early. I knew as young as 5, and was sort of reinforced by it by seeing my mother with her partners. So yeah.
That is stunning. I do hear stories like that because it shows just like how we as a community can thrive from a young age, how it's not dangerous to us, how we can have families and love and be supportive of each other, and it's just wonderful. So I'm very
Absolutely.
happy to hear that. But you know what? It's always bothered me that some people really are so bold to ask wild questions about you.
It really
As
is.
I can't tell you, as a trans woman, like in the most bizarre settings, people are just like, "So, can I ask you something?" And I'm like, I think I know, but I really hope I'm wrong. And they need to know. Nobody needs to know what's in my pants. I just don't understand. We're just at dinner. I don't know that well. Like, what,
Yeah.
it's wild. And it's hard because on the one hand, you want to educate, right? Like, you want to,
Mhm.
help them understand how that might be inappropriate. But on the other, it's like, can I please just
No.
eat my dinner without discussing my genitals? It would just be so
Yep.
novel.
Mm.
Like, you
Yeah.
know?
If they ask what's in your pants, you say, not you. And then we keep it
Good.
moving.
That's your
True.
business.
Because
That's
that's
your
our business.
business.
If I
Love
want you
that.
in my pants, I'll let you know.
Izzy, I know that you are a non-binary individual, and I would love to
Mhm.
hear your perspective on coming out in the world.
Yeah, I feel like I'm constantly coming out. I feel like I'm constantly like a reminder, because of the way that I present and the way that people see me, and because of the ways, it's not even just in the ways of people seeing me as a cis woman, right? And using, she, her, girl, woman, queen, whenever referring to me, but it's also in the sense of it being a binary, like I'm like, well, I actually just don't even exist there. Like I'm not even, in the binary spectrum. Yeah, it's growing up, like I always knew I was queer, and I always had always questioned gender. Like I was always like, what? Like I just never felt like I really ascribed to any set gender within the binary system. But even then, just I had posted how I feel more as if I would align with saying I'm agender, because I don't feel as if I would say that I have any gender. And that has been something that I have known for a very long time. And so it was very difficult because, in my head, like, I was like, I didn't understand why people were labeling me a certain way, or why I didn't understand that people saw me a certain way, because that wasn't my experience. That's not how I saw myself, and that's not how I saw the world. And yeah, even within queer spaces, I'm just always having to remind people, like, hey, I am non-binary. Like, I do exist outside of the binary. I don't use she, her, he, him, anything like that. For a while, I was using she, because I felt like people were going to label me as a woman anyway. Like, that's kind of something, like, I understand the way that I look and the way that I present. I do have a certain experience, right? Like, people are going to look at me as a woman. And so then I was like, nah. Like, actually, every time people say she, I'm like, like, you just kind of feel it, like in your core, like you're like, like that whole when you're misgendered, like you just, it doesn't sit well. And I thought I would be okay with it just because of understanding the way that I walk in this world. But even then, I was like, scratch that. Like, I'm just
Right.
gonna accept it, So yeah, people have a lot of misconceptions, and we'll get into that later. But I think I'm just constantly coming out to people. And then sexuality wise, I identify as pan. But yeah, that was also like everyone has been saying, there's a, the more that you're learning, I would identify as this, I would identify as that, I would identify as, and now at this point in time, I identify non-binary, agender, pan, but sexuality and gender can be very fluid. So, like everyone has been saying, like so many of us have had multiple coming outs because it's like we've learned a new term, or we've this, or we've learned different ways that we ascribe to this. So, yeah, I feel like I think it's just going to be
For sure. And I think that's for every individual. And it's not just about sexuality. I mean, we as human beings are constantly evolving and constantly changing the way that we see ourselves, and in turn the way other people see us. And the more room that we give for people to sort of live in their authenticity, I think the better we can all be. I love all of your views on coming out, and that leads me into this next topic I want to talk about, which is passing privilege. Passing is this idea that you appear, at least on the outside, and can assimilate into society as quote unquote norm, as we would say, is like cisgender, heterosexual, or that you pass as a certain demographic, even if your identity doesn't match that. So I'm interested in your guys' perspective on passing. Denny, what does passing mean to you?
Okay.
Oof.
Passing.
Get ready.
Passing for me means that although I can go outside and most of the times be read as a cis woman, it still means that I'm susceptible to men's harassment at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Male
cis-passing sometimes means more closets, right?
True. Very, very true. Dahlia, how do we feel about passing?
How do we feel about passing? At the base level, it's safety. Like I live in like a lower income neighborhood. Like earlier in my transition, like I, was open to, transphobic, homophobic slurs being, tossed my way. So like, as time passed and I passed, it kind of, I don't know, kind of shielded me from those things. And like Denny said, it did open me up to, catcalling and misogyny. But, for a trans woman, it's better, like it's crazy to say, but it's true. Yeah, it's about comfort and safety on a basic level for me.
This is a common theme among, I can speak specifically of trans women, is that passing is often, or has historically been sort of a goal when it comes to transition, to be under the radar, to sort of pass as a cis woman, because we often see visibly trans people often get the brunt end of harassment, because their visible identity poses some sort of threat to people. And so that the more that you pass, or the more that you are able to sort of blend in with society, the more, the easier it is to gain access to say healthcare, say a job,
Yep.
say I mean, I've dated men who dated me specifically because I was passable enough that we just don't have to talk about your trans thing, right? Like we don't have to tell my parents type thing, and there's so much ugliness and shame in that. And so, and I hate when there's a sort of an expectation for trans people. I'm only speaking for trans because of my own experience, but there's an expectation that we want to pass. Our goal is to be cis people, and I find that infuriating.
Yeah.
Joy.
I also want to add real quick.
Please, Denny. Yes.
The additional aspect that race plays,
Yes.
specifically
Speak
for
on it.
trans women of color, is that I wrote a piece for them of Condé Nast a little over a year ago about that there is a gap for trans women of color that you're either glamorous or you're dead. So you will either see TV and the media, you'll see Amber Monroe, you'll see Shade Schuler, Ty Underwood, Yasmin Vash Payne, we have Nina Pop, we have Leilene Polanco, or we have people like Laverne Cox and Monroe Bergdorf and Janet Mock. And so it's like, can you exist without being reported for your death? And can you exist without having accolades?
Yeah.
That is a fascinating take on that for sure. Joy, your perspective on coming out. Or not coming out, on
Jesus.
passing. We've covered this. We've covered this.
I'm like, again, I have to do this? No.
I'm here again.
My experience with passing, I'm a cisgendered woman. I grew up tomboy, and I used to be proud when people would misgender me as a young boy, because I was like, yeah, that's the point. But that was, again, this is minor experience. But as I grew up and understood about transgender and going on with, like, in the LGBTQ community, I was like, oh, this was way deeper than the shit I did. Like, am I allowed to curse? I'm sorry. Like, this is way deeper. Okay, I was like, I grew up and developed my own style and being like, all right, I can still be tomboyish, and it doesn't matter to me if people see if I'm a girl or if I'm a boy or whatever. But back then it meant a lot. But nowadays I do want to make sure that I take the time, regardless of what your appearance is, that respect is the utmost importance. I want 2020 and beyond. I always want to be like, what is your pronouns? And by golly, if we could gender dogs and get upset, if you misgender the dog, there should be no reason why. If someone says they, them, that you're like, that's too hard. Bitch! Like, them! Like, it is what it is. She, him, they, them, ze, zer, anything. It just should be that. And common respect and decency is, to me, it should be the number one thing. So, pass it on, because I don't feel like I'm good enough for this topic.
Pass it on is so topical in this little discussion at the moment. Kinky, we're passing it on to you. Please, what is your take on passability?
Okay. First of all, I hate the term passing. I hate it so much because as a trans man, I'm not trying. Like, I get trying to pass, but also at the same time, it's just kind of like people make it seem like I'm trying to sneak into bathrooms. Like, I'm going to the bathroom to do and like when people are like, oh my God, you pass so well, it's just like,
yeah.
I would never know. Also, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But also, like, I get the whole safety thing. I get how society expects trans people, binary and non-binary, to behave a certain way or look a certain way. Like, I get it, but also at the same time, like, we should break or try to break those boundaries where it's just, if you see somebody and you don't really know their gender, go about your day. Mind your business. Like, it's so cool where it's just like, man, I'm in the bathroom and I'm washing my hands and the person behind me does not look. Mind your business. Just mind your business and let us use the bathroom. It's simple as that. And then, of course, like, passing privilege, I hate to admit it, but it is something that exists. I've experienced it. I've seen my friends who are also trans get the opposite of it. Whereas, like, I'm 2 years into my transition, I'm growing facial hair and everything. But unfortunately at work, I wear a mask and, I got these beautiful ass eyelashes. So, people are just like, oh, So, but I've seen change in behavior that people, especially cis men, have towards me, because they will literally approach me in very inappropriate ways. It's like, hey, eyelashes, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing fine. thanks. Now back up. And it's just like, and suddenly they want to like approach me with respect, and they're just like, "Oh, sir, oh well, how you doing? Like, what's up?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, no, like, if I was a cis woman, you would be very fucking disrespectful. Excuse my language, but still, that passing privilege is also there because like I know one of my best friends tried to apply for the same job that I have, but they were questioning how he looked. And it was just kind of like, hey, is he a girl or a boy? Like, he's kind of short and this and that. But, like, that's my best friend. And I'm just like, y'all don't see the facial hair on him? Like, back up, like, you know, but he didn't get the job. So that passing privilege is there. And I do know that I have it without a mask on, but it's irritating, the whole passing topic. It's very irritating. But it's definitely all about safety. I'm going to have to agree with, how do you pronounce it?
A lot of it is safety for sure.
Dahlia.
Dahlia.
Thank you.
Dahlia.
Dahlia.
I'm just going to interrupt the
I'm
conversation
going to have to
real
agree with
quick.
you on that one.
It is about safety. Big shout out to AIM Labs for a $1,000 donation to our Juneteenth Streamathon.
Wow.
All donations today, all of our donations go straight to Color of Change, which is a nonprofit that campaigns to end practices. I want to make sure I say this correctly because I love how they word this. It campaigns to end practices that unfairly hold Black people back and champion solutions that move us all forward. I'm here for this. We love to see it. Kitsu, thank you so much for your perspective on passing. It is a difficult, multifaceted sort of issue, and I wish people understood that it is more about safety than about like aesthetics. Aaron, are we passing? Are we not passing? Do we want it? What's tea?
Pass.
We're gonna pass.
We're gonna. So I actually feel like there's a few factors that I find quite irritable with the aspect of passing. The first being is that I think to pass requires one to have access to certain things that the minority group does not have. So in the case of me being a Black man, for instance, you know, I'm college educated. I, you know, went to private schools like my entire childhood. But I also know that when I walk into a room full of professional white people, that the code switch goes on like, you know, ASAP Rocky, if you will, you know? But, you know, for instance, I have a cousin who is just as intelligent as I am, if not more. He's one of the men that I respect the most on this planet. And for instance, if he and I will walk into a retail store because he's wearing like a hoodie or loose jeans, you know, he is instantly vilified, you know? So I think there is that access of, you know, if you have enough money, you can pass for anything, like, you know, or pass with anything, if that makes sense. And I feel like access is sort of what's frustrating about it all. But then I think there's also, at least in and I'm only speaking as my experience as a queer Black man. But for instance, on the south side of Chicago, so a lot of queer friends made in high school were passing, were very masculine, you know, on the DL, downloaded, low down type. Men that could, you know, parlay in football practice and like, you know, do their dirt outside the locker room. But, you know, I was shoved into lockers like it was a sport consistently, you know? So, yeah, I feel like I don't have a lot to speak on directly into like the privileges or the lack thereof of passing. But I don't know, it's an insane concept to me. And it's something that I mean, especially my heart goes out to the trans community, because I also think pastness is also sort of intertwined with, Eurocentric beauty standards as well. That's a big one right there, where, you know, when someone is telling a trans friend of mine that she looks great, I didn't even know. But it's also saying, as opposed to what? Like, as a, like, what's on the opposite end of that? What are you implying? So for the women that don't look like me, why is my womanhood challenged because I don't fucking look like a Kardashian to you? You know, like, it's very much that. So.
Well, as somebody who does look like a Kardashian, I can't wait.
You look better. Don't even. You look like a clone. Get out of here with that bull.
Kardashians found dead.
Suck ass bitches. I don't got time. Do not bring them things in here. It's Juneteenth. Don't bring them clones in here.
I feel like it's another expectation put on us. It's like, we don't want to know that you're here, but if you blend in, maybe we'll just like not think about it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like how, you know, there's no right way to protest, for example, but suddenly you make it visible and the world's like, how dare you be a queer person with visible queerness? How dare? So I stand everybody for living in their truth, passing or not. Izzy, I'm very interested to hear your perspective as a non-binary individual. What is and I think it's something that's come into the collective sort of conscious in the past 5 to 10 years about non-binary identity and what that looks like, what it doesn't look like, or what it can look like. So please shed some light on this.
Yeah, I feel like when a lot of people, you know, like when I say I'm non-binary, I think like a lot of people tend to equate non-binary with being androgynous. And, you know, a lot of people think that in order to be non-binary, right, like you have to, you also have to look a certain way, right? Like you have to almost be in the, I guess, the not passing kind of category, right? Like you have to be in the other category, because people, when they think about non-binary, they tend to see us as a third option, as a third gender, instead of seeing us as our own spectrum, right? So like in terms of like passing or non-passing, which tend to be very binary discussions, it's like, well, when we talk about non-binary, like people, I don't know, it's just really interesting because people just assume that you would have to look a certain way, or you would have to take yourself out of that and other yourself and kind of be a sort of like non-human entity. Like it's just very interesting in the ways that people equate like non-binary to an other type of thing, where
right. It's
really
almost radical.
all we're saying is, you know, our spectrum doesn't begin and end with, you know, male, female. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so you know, I definitely would say in terms of when we look at the gender binary and the concept of passing in the mainstream, I definitely would just like to say that I agree with everyone here and what they're saying. Like it definitely, resources have a lot to do with it, access. You know, I really liked Erin's point of the fact that, you know, passing also includes this inherent wanting to adhere to Eurocentric beauty standards as well, you know? So it's like, well, that really makes us examine the ways in which we view gender and the roles that we've assigned. Like, okay, well, a woman is supposed to look like this, supposed to like this, they're supposed to have the long hair, they're supposed to have this, that, and then men, they're supposed to be like, you know, X, Y, and Z. Sorry, okay. So you know, it's kind of still constricting. You know, it's still very, very constricting. But it's just a very interesting conversation to have. I'm learning a lot, and you know, just hearing everybody else's replies. Like I'm really interested in examining the ways in which this shows up, because this is also something about survival, you know. So it's unfortunate that the way that we appear and our outside appearance is so heavily based on our way to navigate the world and our ways to survive in this world, and it reflects like the opportunities that we're able to get, the jobs that we're able to get, how we're treated in the general society and everything like that. But yeah, I just like to say that, like, you know, I totally agree with everyone, piggyback off of all of that. It's a very interesting conversation when I think about it in the non-binary community, in regards to like what is passing when we're not even really included in what people think gender is, you know, like what would be passing for us, because we're not even part of the binary.
Yeah, well, it's not people who are women and not men. Like, there's a direct link to indigeneity. So, like, it's what, to your point and Aaron's point, it's not a coincidence that men and women have such Eurocentric, like, requirements.
Yeah, I think it's if we've learned anything in this discussion thus far, it's that we are made up of more than just a single identifier, and that identifier can be defined in a multitude of ways, and often we see it as a spectrum of experience. So now that we've kind of started to nibble on this, there is a big question I really want to bite into, and that is that because none of us are defined by a single thing, intersectionality plays a huge part in our lives as queer people. We all exhibit intersectional perspectives that includes gender, sexuality, race, religion, and this shapes the way that we individually navigate the world and how the world views us. And I think relevant to this stream and to the Black Lives Matter movement at large, I think this could be a discussion about racism within the LGBTQ community. So I guess this is a kind of a big compounded question, but we have about 20 minutes to really talk about this. But I would love to hear about your individual perspectives as intersectional people and how that plays out in your part in the community, if that makes sense. Denny, carry it away.
I will. All I'm going to say is, Black, queer, and trans people started the queer movement, essentially. But I will say that there is a danger. There is a big danger in upholding that, because if you're Black, you do not need to pave way in order to not die. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's good to be responsible in knowing your history, because history is a choice for a lot of people. But it's also important to know that that should not matter.
We in it. We in it. We're talking about it. She said that.
Denny is not serving breakfast.
Okay. The scolding tea.
For your grand slam.
This is the meat and potatoes, kids. We still run today. Dahlia, darling.
Yes.
Where are we? Give me your perspective.
Where are we? I feel like intersectionality means that I'm fighting on multiple fronts. You know, like, I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm trans, and those identities conflate to create a whole bunch of different issues that I'm constantly needing to like shuffle and like rearrange and like make sure that, like, you know, I'm being heard. You know, like even within the trans community, sometimes I see like non-Black trans girls say some messy shit, and I'm like, how are you, as a part of a marginalized community, how do you have these thoughts? Like, can we not unpack that? And then like with the Black community, it's like when you say, I've seen people on Twitter be like, oh, why do I have to fight for, like, you know, trans people, gay people? Like, they made that choice. I didn't choose to be Black. And it's just like really, like, does my Black life no longer matter if I'm trans or if I'm gay? Like, why are you cutting me off from what we're struggling for? Why don't you see me as important as you see your brother, your sister, the dude down the street. Like, it's crazy. Like, and it's frustrating at the end of the day, because it's like, damn, like I have my foot in 2 communities and none of them are really lifting me up the way I need to be lifted up. So it's like I constantly have to be pleading to be seen, like by everyone, like, and it's frustrating, but I'm glad platforms like this are, creating a space for us to have this conversation, and I hope that, we can grow from this and have more unity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Joy.
I felt that so much, Dahlia. Thank you so much. I felt the intersectionality for me in my life was I was a woman first, and then religion reminded me that I was a woman a lot. I grew up Baptist, so I was like, oh, I'm a woman. And then I say woman first because I had people in my own family and me tell me I wasn't Black enough, which that took a while to figure that shit out. So then I found out, oh, I'm Black, right? Yeah, I'm Black. And then add gay on top of that, and I was like, oh no, this is some more struggle. Let's have some of that. So it took me to like see people in media, specifically Janelle Monáe, not even questioning who she liked or whatever. It was just seeing her being like, wow, she doesn't give a rat's ass. Like, okay, I need to look towards that and be like, look, it doesn't matter what people see me as. And like you said, people in the Black community, they have all these expectations, and then the same turn, they're just tearing you down. And everyone, like, it shouldn't be about that. So it took me a long time to understand that I could still, even though I grew up in Baptist religion, I have my own spirituality, and it's not based on my parents or my aunts and uncles or whoever the hell. And I can love who I love, and my Blackness or my bisexualness or anything like that doesn't matter. And I've just been trying to have that be more understood for others.
Yeah.
I think you're a shining example, truly, and I stand for everything that you are, darling. Kitsu. Intersectionality. Black lives matter. Your life matters.
Amen.
I'm tired.
I hear that.
I've had so many experiences living my life being Black and not straight. Man, I don't even know where to begin, because first of all, like, Black women are very underappreciated, and right now I have so much anger because, like, of course, before I transitioned, I experienced my life as a Black woman, and like and then of course after I transitioned, now I'm experiencing things as a Black man, and I hate it. I mean, I love it, but I hate
it. I hate it here.
They think I'm a cis Black man, and it is wild because they think that I'm not straight. But even still, even not even knowing about my sexuality or anything, they're still like mistreating me and like treating me like crap, to be honest. And I'm just like, y'all need to give trans Black people a break, because we're exhausted.
Please.
Like,
I'm tired.
Dealing with the Black Lives Matter and the beginning of this month and how it went down, and then now seeing the deaths of like Black trans women and like the mistreatment of Black women in general, it's exhausting. I feel like there is absolutely no rest, and like I have a huge heart, and I feel for like everybody going through it. I'm going through it myself, and like I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. Like, I love being Black and I love being trans, but dang, y'all, please have mercy.
It's so frustrating that that queer people are expected to be the ones to fight against these injustices when it's other people putting it on them, you know? Like I genuinely believe that there needs to be like a white initiative to call this shit out when we see it.
Yes.
You know, it should not be on the shoulders of Black queer people to say stop killing Black queer people. It needs to be us being like,
Nope.
that's not okay. We are not okay with that. We don't condone that. So I'm sorry you're so tired. I can't even imagine. I think all of us have felt that to an extent. Aaron, how tired are you?
You want to know how tired I am?
Give it
I'm
to
gonna
him.
give I'm gonna give the 1-star review on Yelp because fuck this. I hate it. It's ghetto here.
It's ghetto.
It's. I think being a queer Black man this month has been one of the most infuriating experiences of my life. I have never had such an anger for cisgendered Black men. Like, yes, Black women have been traumatized this month. Like, it is excruciating to bear. And I feel like anytime I go on Twitter, like, I have to prepare myself for a trigger warning. Every single fucking time.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's been so much, and it's been so infuriating that the Black women and the queer people in the Black community have fought this fight for so fucking long for what I am just going to blatantly say for an ungrateful group of cisgender Black men. Like, they are so fucking ungrateful. We go, you know, as the girls say, hard in the paint for them anytime, and just even the disparities between hashtag George Floyd and hashtag Breonna Taylor says, like, that is all you need to know. It's what been still 96 days, and nothing is gaining momentum. Nothing is gaining momentum on her front. And then, like, what do we have to do to not only, you know, protect our Black women, but also, like, take a seat. Like, we've got this, you know? Like, I'm just truly ready for Black men to step up. I really am. I'm so fucking tired of it. Yeah, this has been one of the most frustrating, like, 2 weeks. Just, like, we really are. And, like, everything that Dahlia and Joy and, like, Kitsu, like, everything you guys said, like, I was over here like, just because you guys are all speaking to it so eloquently. But yes, we tired of y'all. Like, the cis community has to do better. Like, truly, like, it has to do better, because I'm at a point now where I'm just like, I want to so vehemently protect my queer community and the community of women and just pass the shit off to them. You guys take this mess. Take the mess that you've created and go to, you know, someone tweeted something that I just, like, literally sent me into tears 6 days ago, and I think it's important to share for the sake of this panel. He said, if white men knew the destruction that Black cisgender men caused within our community, they would back the fuck off and let them do their job. It is that, like, it is, yes. Like,
Shit.
Let me wipe the sweat. Let me wipe the sweat.
hey,
Oh,
like,
Aaron said that's on period. That's what Aaron said. Izzy, it looks like you have a perspective on this as well. I would love to hear it.
Oh, yeah. I had tweeted Black Trans Lives Matter, you know, from the jump, from when this was starting to gain more momentum. And I got so many people telling me I was causing division within the Black community. And I was just like, where did I say that, like, where in Black Trans Lives Matter, do you not see Black? Like, where in
Right.
that do you not see that we are right here? We are part of your community. Like, and we have always been here. Like, whether you want to validate us or not, we're here. And we're fighting for you, we're fighting for us, we're fighting for everyone. So why is it
Right.
that, you know, we just never get the same respect back? You know, like, we're screaming and shouting Tony McDade's name. We're screaming and shouting Nina Pop. We're screaming and shouting Dominique, right? Like, everyone's names, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. We have room at the table for everyone.
Everyone.
Everyone in the Black community is who we are fighting for. And time again, it's very disappointing to see the fact that intersectionality is so lost on so many people. Like, you know, Black cis men have the struggle of being able to understand that there is more than one. You know, it's not just the fact that we're Black. You know, when I walk outside the door, even though I'm non-binary, you know, in relation to the passing discussion that we just had, like, I would be passing for a woman, right? So I go outside, I'm met with misogynoir, which is misogyny mixed with embedded in the fact that I am also Black. So and I'm queer, you know, and even just being non-binary, being totally invisible in every aspect of the word, you know. So it's just like we have so many compounding intersections and layers to us that we really need to start understanding and listening and giving the people who are speaking out and who understand this the platform to. You know, we see a lot of Black cis men who have platforms who are not using them, and who are not even just not using, you know, if you don't have anything to say, fine, pass me the mic, you know, retweet my tweets, you know, retweet everybody else's. Like, if you don't have anything to say, that's fine. Why don't you give us the mic? Why don't you give us the ability to say something? And when we speak, listen. Don't automatically go on your little ego trip and be like, well, I'm offended by this, you know, because you're calling me out for my cis male privilege. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like, no, you have to, you know, in order, if we're talking liberation for Black people, we're talking about liberation for all Black people. You know, we're not talking about one specific subset. So yeah, like I be fighting people all the time, all day, every day. I'm like, Black cis men, y'all need to do better. And it's also, you know, the intersection of class, you know, the intersection of so many different things, right? Like, what does it look like for Black people who grew up like me, like, who grew up in the hood versus having an experience where you grow up in more affluent place where you have more resources and you have better to resources, right? So it's like those two experiences are also very different. So when people talk about intersectionality and stuff like that, you know, a lot of people tend to also berate the Black people that speak out, who are hood, who are ghetto, who are, you know, and it's like, we need to not do that. We need to understand all of the intersections of the Black community. We need to understand that Black community are not just one size fits all. Like, we are so many different things, and we are capable of being so many at the same time, all at once. It's not a zero-sum game, like I'm taking something from you and then like you know, it's like, no, everyone can eat at the table, it's fine.
Exactly. And only because we're a little short on time at the moment, I just want to say that if this conversation has shown anything, it is that Black lives encompass a broad variety of perspectives. And I think it's so important that we acknowledge that it's not just one type of person that you that's in your mind about what a Black person is or what a queer person is or who deserves their life, when it's everybody involved and it is a group effort. I want to thank all of you so much for this conversation. This has been so enlightening and such a cool way to kick off Juneteenth live.
Yes.
No pride panel in here. No pride without justice. Black lives do matter. You guys can stay tuned for more quirktastic LGBTQIA plus conversations. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thank you
I'm ready
guys
to
so
part
much.
two,
Thank
though.
you.
Thank
Part
you.
two, we're
Yeah,
here
part
for it.
two.
Part two.
Yes, part two.